They do exist. They are, in fact, out there. Not a lot of them are elected at the moment, but there are some good Democrats out there. And when they do something good, we've of course got to point them out. I don't know how much longer Joe Manchin's going to be a Democrat per se, because most of his party is spurging out right now at the fact that he's not really too keen on HR1, nor should he be, to be completely honest. He's in a bit of a precarious position, right? Because he's a Democratic senator from West Virginia, and West Virginia, I'm pretty sure, went double-digit points for Republicans the last time around. He realizes, right, that eventually he's going to find himself in the middle of the firing squad. And as much as he's been saying, listen, I'm not going to be a Republican, I'm not hopping over to the other side of the aisle, I'm just thinking that his hand might be forced. And if there's going to be one guy who is the keystone for the proverbial fracturation of the Democratic Party itself, it might be Joe Manchin. I'm not too sure, though. There are a couple of people who are starting to wake up, but Joe's in the headlines for very good reasons because, yeah, on the election reform bill, the Senate variation, once it gets there, it had the S designation 1. We can't afford any more division. So obviously he's starting to feel the heat from his side of the aisle. He's not going to be signing on to this atrocious piece of legislation. And that's good news. That really is good news. And don't be fooled by Kirsten Sinema for being a fucking moderate. Old box wine aunt has not an independent thought in her fucking dome. But Joe is starting to fucking see where the winds are going to take him. So credit where credit's due. Joe Manchin told reporters on Wednesday that the S.1 election reform bill, the Senate version of H.R. 1, previously covers too many areas. He suggested it would get broader support if it was only focused on voting rights, specifically making voting more secure and accessible. You know what I hear? I hear a dog whistle that somebody likes voter ID and voter security and not making it available to everybody. To me, that sounds like voter suppression. Days are numbered in the Democratic Party, my friend. I think there's so much good in there and so many of the things. I think all of us should be able to get united around voting rights. Absolutely. But it should be limited to the voting rights and not exclusively to so many other areas. Absolutely 100% couldn't agree more. On March 3rd, the House passed H.R. 1 by the vote of 220 to 210, a sweeping government and election reforms bill that the Senate will now consider, and it doesn't sound like it has the adequate votes. Some of the many provisions in S.1 include requiring that states implement early voting, automatic voter registration, same-day registration, online voter registration, restoring the ability of felons to vote. Stupid. Oh, so that means Ahmad Alawisi there, the fucking boulder shooter, he's going to be able to vote if this passes through the Senate when he eventually gets out after 10 consecutive life sentences. Or maybe just the Democrats will get so crazy he'll be able to vote from jail. Who knows? No fault absentee balloting and 15 days of early voting. I couldn't imagine a bigger packet of insecurity in one concise, I think it's like 600 pages anyways, so not very concise, piece of legislation that should go absolutely nowhere. The legislation would also require states to automatically register all adults from state and national databases. Nope. Regardless of citizenship status, even more of a nope. End voter ID requirements, super nope. And mandate that states accept absentee ballots up to 10 days after the election. Why bother having an election day that is enshrined in the Constitution? Unless your party doesn't give a flying fuck about the Constitution, then all of this starts to make a hell of a lot more sense. The bill also requires reform to campaign finance law and establishment of redirecting commissions in each state. And if my memory serves me correctly, the campaign finance law reform that they're referring to is small donations. I think it was under $2,000. It was either $2,000 or $800. I know it's a big gap, but sentiment's the same. They would be matched by the local or the state level DNC or RNC, whatever the affiliated institution is, would match it 4 times for small grassroots support. Needs that additional federal government money. Your tax dollars at work, people. Manchin said an election reform bill should have broad bipartisan support because voting rights is not a partisan issue. He said many Republicans in the last election felt the voting process was not fair, and even some breached the U.S. Capitol because of the issue. Let's see what his take on this was before I give him a pat on the back. Yeah, we can't afford any more division. Okay, I already like it, especially on voting rights. And now we're going to have a piece of legislation that might divide us even further on bipartisan basis. That shouldn't happen because there's too much good in here, said Manchin. Yeah. Fair enough. Good stuff. It won't resonate well with your party. It might with your base. I just don't know why you're going to be on the Democratic side going forward, because over the next 2 years, you're going to see quite a, what's the nicest way to put this? The breadline type politics. Like, realistically, your de facto leader is saying shit that is polar opposite of what you're proposing and saying yourself. Ugh. The rape enabler, doubling down on trying to stop voters from voting is what the GOP is all about. How would you know? You still think that you're supposed to be 50 points ahead. Twice failed presidential candidate Hillary Clinton. Yes, she tried to run in 2008 and failed even more spectacularly. Went after Republican state legislatures taking action to secure the integrity of the elections via basic election integrity measures, proclaiming Wednesday that the GOP is actively doubling down on trying to stop voters from voting. Literally, just slap a hood and she looks like the Emperor from Star Wars. It's melting. It's melting. She should just tighten up that necklace so her fucking cheekbones don't sink down to her collarbone. The Republican Party is unwilling to change its policies to appeal to more people. Why? Should just appeal to the people who like law and order. That's fine. So it's doubling down on trying to stop voters from voting, Clinton said in a social media post to nearly 31 million Twitter followers. God, it's a shame she wasn't more popular. And that is, what, nearly twice as many as Biden has? And she got how many fewer votes? Wow. Just goes to show you, if Biden had such a large platform, how much even more popular than he would be, because I totally believe nearly 81 million people can't be wrong. Most popular person ever. Referencing a New York Times piece called GOP and Allies Draft Best Practices for Restricting Voting. Well, it's the New York Times, and it's National Enquirer levels of reporting at this day and age. Then you can see on the sidebar here, we won't bother bringing it up because it's going to be the exact same pieces, because Chuck Schumer gets all of his talking points from the Clinton wing of the Democratic Party, which in the previous video where we got to the part where Kamala Harris is going to be joining forces with the Arkansas sex pest, the Clintons are still very, very much in charge of the DNC, or at least have a significant stake in the future of the party. That's why there's so many swamp creatures in the cabinet. And it looks like Harris is just the heir apparent at this point, even though I wouldn't put it past the old bitch to maybe run in 2028, because Biden, remember, sees himself as a two-term president. But yeah, even Chuck Schumer, majority leader in the Senate, you know what? He's still shaken by the fact that we have every branch of the government except for the Supreme Court, which, just give it a couple more months and packing the court's going to come up very, very shortly, because they were already talking about DC statehood, like I said, and that's getting shot down extremely quickly because they got this pesky thing called the United States Constitution. If only people would stop clinging to their guns and their piece of paper, we could have the utopia we so crave. God damn it. But they're shook. They're shook by the fact that HR 1 is the genetic dead end, like most of their voters, and that Republicans are racist because they want you to show ID. I know, just fucking terrible people. But why are they ramping up this rhetoric? Well, mostly because the mass shooting stuff is just kind of fucking fizzling out because they're overplaying their hand, and nobody else is really bowing to their perpetual cycle of blame white people, mass shooting happens, grab the guns. Blame white people, mass shooting happens, grab the guns. They keep perpetuating this over and over and over again. That's just kind of running out of steam after they were trying to blame a white guy for shooting up Boulder, Colorado, and then it found out that there was more phlegm in that name than trying to order a falafel and hummus. Or maybe the eternal polling's coming in and they realize that their support is wafer thin. Or maybe they're also seeing that the states around the country are starting to recognize that, hey, something's going on here and we should probably shore up our defenses. Like in Michigan, where Joe Biden is so goddamn popular, right? Michigan Secretary of State's absentee ballot order broke law. It's right there in the middle of the screen if you want to read the last line there, but my YouTube, right? A Michigan judge ruled last week Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson, broke state law when she unilaterally issued rules related to absentee balloting. Benson issued several unilateral orders during the 2020 election, including sending absentee ballot applications to all registered voters. She also issued guidance on how to evaluate absentee ballots, a move Michigan Court of Claims Chief Judge Christopher Murray held violated the state's Administrative Procedures Act. Sounds significant. 16-page ruling from the court here. Shan't go through all of that. Just the highlights, of course. In the guidance, Benson said slight similarities in signatures or on absentee ballots should lead a counter to decide in favor of finding that the voter's signature was valid. Murray ruled Benson violated the law because the guidance issued by the Secretary of State on October 6, 2020, with respect to signature matching standards was issued in violation of the Administrative Procedures Act, the APA. Wonder if Farouk and Bradshaw were reached for comment. I'm glad the court sees Secretary of State Benson's attempt at lawmaking for what they are, a clear violation of her authority. Michigan State Representative Matt Hall, simple man, simple name, said in a statement, "Good man. What else? I don't care what he had to say. I'm just glad they're doing something about it." Murray's ruling undercuts the Democrats' narrative that Republicans' legal challenges to the 2020 election procedures were without merit and had therefore all been rejected by the courts. It's weird if any of those lawsuits actually would have got to the discovery phase. Maybe they would have been able to bring this up. I'm just saying all of those lawsuits were dismissed except for one in Nevada, to be fair, but that was a Sidney Powell lawsuit. And the stuff coming out about her, we're going to have to take some time in the coming days to go over what she has filed in her defamation lawsuit against Dominion Voting Systems, because it's a doozy. Sorry if you guys got duped by that whole Q thing. But that was the only one that ever got to a second stage. The rest of them were just dismissed without prejudice, even at the Supreme Court level. Some, the latter ones that happened after Inauguration Day, were dismissed without any word from the court, except unless you're Clarence Thomas, and then you just have to write page after page of, we need to rule on this. And Alito also threw in a couple of lines as well, because he also had things that he wanted Pennsylvania to rule on that would have been nice, but no use crying over spilt milk. The states are all taking steps. It's great to see. Georgia, Michigan, Arizona. Don't have any information on that. The audit's going to audit, and once we get the results there, it's going to be a doozy, and I can't wait to hear Jen Psaki dodge that question. But it's happening. The reform's happening across the country. H.R. 1 does not have the support. There are several other steps involved in the Senate, which I've told you guys about. There's this magical filibuster thing that's around there. The doomsday is not coming. Put the black pills back in the bottle. Everything's going to be all right, guys. But that's the good thing about voting, because we got some potentially bad news when it comes to the Second Amendment after this. But sometimes the middle video's happy, and that's what this one is, because Democrats got BTFO'd, and it couldn't happen to a nicer group of socialists. And with that said, I thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.